Everybody gets to talk for 2 minutes. Here we go. Here we go. Good morning. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods Village, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. This is Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, and we are in the boardroom. I'm calling this meeting to order. I see we do have a quorum, and Pledge of Allegiance this morning will be led by Director Milliman.
Please stand. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Acknowledging the media. Yes, media here. Good, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Approval of agenda? Okay, do I have a second? Good. All those in favor? Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the meeting of February 5th.
I was going to pull something off the consent calendar. I should have done that at the beginning.
We
Is
can
that-
wait. We
is
can
that
wait
okay?
till the consent if you want
We
to.
can wait till
Okay,
consent, John says.
thanks.
Okay, approval of the minutes? Do
I have a Scribner's.
Okay,
Okay, before we do it, on page 10 of 16, under the whereas near the bottom, it says city. Okay. It should be citing. Thanks to other people, sharp eyes. It's the next to the last whereas, and it's the second line down. You find it? Okay, thank you. Okay, now we can wait. I second the motion to approve.
oh, thank you. Those in favor?
Approval is correct.
Approved. Approval is granted. Report of the chair. Last month, in my chair's remarks, I stated that we were coming to the end of a group of storms. I said I would like to thank Chief Moy and the security team and the COO, Siobhan Foster, and the management team and the resident services team as they monitored and addressed storm damage and concerns in the community, and then responded to telephone calls from citizens in need. I then thanked our professional VMS staff for their diligent work. So now, here we are in March, and I am once again saying all of the above, thanking all of the staff who continue to serve us and to attend to the safety in our community. Thank you very much. GRF board members had the opportunity to interview several legal counsel firms in February with the goal of selecting a legal firm to represent GRF beginning in March 2019. They unanimously selected a legal firm. The whole board then voted and affirmed the choice of legal counsel. We chose the firm of Richardson and Ober. We've asked Kelly Richardson to attend our meeting today. Welcome, Kelly. And would you please take a few minutes to tell us a bit about your legal experience?
Thank you. It's very nice to be here. I am the founder of a law firm called Richardson Ober. We have been in business for...
Kelly, excuse
Yes.
me, is your mic on?
I think so.
Is
I
the
can hear
little green
myself.
buttons showing?
Yes,
Oh, okay, all right.
yes. I have been practicing law for 36 years, and I have spent the last 30 of those primarily advising and representing common interest developments, primarily residential, but these days lots of mixed use and industrial as well. I have had the honor of serving the Community Associations Institute in 2016 as its president, after serving 7 years on its National Board of Trustees, I guess international because we have 3 international chapters. I write a column. I've written it for over 10 years now. I'm published weekly in 14, I think, newspapers from San Diego to Santa Barbara. and one of these days, crossing my fingers for the LA Times. I have served CAI in a number of other capacities as well, creating courses and serving 2 different chapters on its local board of directors. I have served Third Laguna Hills Mutual several years ago for about 3 years as its counsel, and I'm truly thrilled to be back serving the village.
Thank you, Kelly. Welcome. Thank you. And so, update from VMS, and today it's our director, Lisa Bender, our VMS rep.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lisa.
In fact, we had kind of a who's on first, who's on second kind of thing going on. And I was having somebody who would written a letter to the Globe, and we were going to have an employee here that helped clear a driveway because the spouse needed to get back in after a hospital visit, and they came and they just took the tree apart and got people into their home safely. And it was going to be a public thank you, but that didn't work out. But I do have some other kind of kudos that I'd like to show, as well as give you some updates from some of the departments within the village. I'm not going to read through all of these kudos, but if you would go on, there is an employee newsletter that comes out, I believe, once a month. All right, once a month. And a very important part of that employee newsletter are kudos from residents. When an employee has gone out of their way to do something favorable toward a resident. And there are little kudos cards right at the front center. And I just want to encourage everybody who's listening to thank somebody if they've done something out of the ordinary for you. And the next couple of examples here is help somebody find their staff at the Clubhouse One gym, help people find hearing aids that were left behind at the gym. Landscape cleaned up the Aliso Creek area. Somebody left their purse on top of their car as they were getting their husband into the car, drove away. And the purse was found and returned by VMS employees. Our landscaping crew sometimes doesn't get kudos, but lots of times they do. And Ed Foster wanted to thank the Angel Del Torres for taking quick action. A recreation leader was recognized by Derek Fleming. Mary Binder, that was the one. Mary Binder thanked Hilario Orozco for finding her pocketbook. And if you would go on. Okay, and lastly, we had the recreation leaders. But what I want to do is very important if all of us have worked when somebody says thank you or has recognized you. And we have 800 employees here. We're a company. We have things going on, and I'll talk about some of those other things. So anytime you can take time out and thank somebody or provide some kudos, it's very much appreciated by the staff. Okay, with that, since the last time I was here, there have been 3 directors that have come to the VMS meeting. Directors come routinely every other meeting. They rotate throughout the year. And I like to provide, as a representative from GRF, some highlights from what some of the directors have done. Betty Parker came back in January, so this is old news, and maybe some of it is even more complete than it has been. But there's going to be insurance program information that will be useful to the boards as well as residents, and that will go on to the community website. I remember myself last year trying to do a transaction in the resident center, and I had a credit card, no cash and no check, sent away but now you can make some credit card transactions at resident services. That's a big improvement. And soon, you'll be able to use your credit card on the new resident portal that will be coming out over the next month or so, I believe. Finances also work to consolidate their bills from SCE and made it less labor intensive and reduced the number of billing invoices that they've had to deal with by 90%. So that falls under, when I talk about the 5 goals, that one fell under efficiency. Most of the financial services did. Another one is they were able to do the inventory at the golf store. In operations, they were able to do that entirely electronically rather than having to count. And then there will be a select audit task force, which will be taking a look at specific internal controls that they selected over the next 2 years. And that's typically, audits are a typically arduous process, but they're very important to make sure that there is stability in our financial procedures. Now, Eileen, Paulin, who runs communications and marketing, does an excellent job. The employee newsletter is terrific, but right now her department is calling all new residents to welcome them personally and ask them to attend the new resident orientation. There are 5 docent tours conducted monthly so people can see potential residents and new residents can see what the village has to offer. There was a task force convened that included staff that work with real estate agents and a focus group to redesign the signage. Not in place yet. I saw it's still on the 30-day, I think, in the GRF processes. And then there's a very important process going on in the village right now called Code Red. Has everybody filled out a Code Red? Code Red allows security to find you if there is some kind of emergency notification that's necessary. When I first put this together a couple of weeks ago to talk to you all, there were 3,000 Code Reds that had been filled out, but now there's over 4,000. So that's good, but not enough. So these Code Red forms are available at most of the community centers. Dwelling Live, there were 4,000 guests registered through the holiday season using Dwelling Live, and we're looking for a 25% increase. Again, Dwelling Live is one of the software packages that we use that allow residents to let their own guests in. It cuts down on calls and it cut to resident services, and it's important for people to try to use it. You're all receiving the Breeze and the Blast and What's Up in the Village, and the last What's Up in the Village had nearly 4,000 unique further clicks. So people read it, they go inside, and they click it further. And Eileen and her staff have declared this year for being the year of reaching the hard to reach. Not everybody is electronically accessible. So some of the programs that they're going to be doing is that for every program that makes a home visit, which is usually some of our more elderly and vulnerable residents, they will bring copies of the Breeze and the Blast with them. So that is Meals on Wheel, I'm on this one, wait. Thank you, Diane, friendly visitor programs. Okay, they're trying to engage residents in with bus and lobby monitors and at the clubs, and they're going to identify new ways to reach cultural groups. There's going to be a first pilot of a new resident orientation in foreign languages, and one is going to be done with the Chinese American Club. Human Resources came through. We have over 800 employees, as I talked about. We had to hire 234 employees last year. Full-time was 115, part-time 119. Right now, there are 36 openings for full-time and part-time. Many of the part-time positions are open for things like recreation aides. Many of you have college-age grandchildren around. It's a perfect job. They are part-time jobs. They can go into the evening hours or flex their hours and have early morning. And we need some recreation aides who do a lot of setup for a lot of the activities that go on in it. The other part-time job that is open to residents themselves are gate ambassadors. So if you're looking to fill some of your time, gate ambassador might be the right thing for you. Some of our full-time openings are in plumbing and in project management. And recruitment is hard because there is small amount of unemployment in the area, and we lose people sometimes because they get more competitive offers elsewhere. But that staff is quite busy. They also have to do training, particularly to cover the California Law 1343, where harassment prevention needs to be taught to all employees and more frequently to employers and supervisors. And then, of course, they do other activities like service awards, recognition awards, whatever. A very they're busy. Landscape Services has 140 employees. They're organized into 9 different work areas. They maintain our 318 acres of turf, our 232 acres of shrubs, our 34,000 trees. The activities that Landscape do are irrigation management, composting, nursery, pest control, creek maintenance, and rain event response. And as we know, they've been very, very busy over the last 6 weeks with all the rain they have. They have some challenges, Whitney. And here's what they're doing to try to approach them. As you know, herbicides has been a big issue within the community. They have a testing program underway that will determine which product is best used in the community. They will make these reports to the Mutual and GRF, and hopefully the information will help some of the issues die down based upon the data that is used. Service tickets. There's a growing volume of service tickets from landscaping. When I've been identified a vicious cycle where new tickets come in and the crew is pulled off to go to some of the more emergency tickets, and then they fall behind, and then everything takes longer than anybody wants it to. So what Kurt, who is going to be doing, is a reorganization. And in our negotiations with the labor union this year, we were able to get them to allow us to do more contracted services. So now he has more options available to him and will be contracting out some of the slope maintenance. So in addition to his reorganization where he'd have people following tickets, some doing emergencies, they'll be using contracted services. Trees also will fall into more contracted services. What did I say? We had how many trees? 34,000. Our staff can only get to about 5,000 a year as they're currently configured. So there'll be more contracted services going to trees to increase the volume that we're able to address. And that's it, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. And now we will have the CEO report. Mr. Parker.
Good morning, everybody. A few things that I wanted to update you on, and some things that are going on in the village. To begin with, Village Library is going to host a book sale coming up Saturday, so I just wanted to mention that from 9 a.m. to noon at the library. And the proceeds of that go back into providing more activities at the library and more circulation activities, so it's kind of nice. And hopefully, it'll be a dry day on Saturday. Second thing is the village welcomes our second annual Health and Wellness Expo. That's going to be March 21st, Thursday, and Friday, March 22nd, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on both days. A lot of activities going on there in concert with our recreation staff, handling and supporting those activities. A number of things that are complimentary each day. There'll be 375 cooling towels that will be for the first attendees at it. There'll be juice and food provided by some of the sponsors. So, and there'll also be a sponsor passport where if you get punched in, then you'll be eligible for a drawing for some cool activities there. A number of sponsors, I'm not going to list them all, but I did want to mention that there's going to be some speakers there that are going to have presentations on fall prevention, memory loss, depression, and mental health issues, memory loss prevention. They're going to also have Medicare and information and long-term care planning at this event. So I think that's going to be a full day on both the 21st and 22nd. So in the morning from 11 to 3. Hope people can get out there and attend some good services. Pool 5 reopened on February 18th. Pool 1 closed, so we're going through our process of getting our annual maintenance done. And some of the activities have shifted with regards to the Saddleback Emeritus classes are now permanently relocated to Pool 5. And Aqueduct practices are temporarily relocated over to Pool 4. So we'll continue that process of routine annual maintenance, and we'll keep you up to date on that. A big activity that I think a lot of people have been looking forward to, the pickleball court grand opening is getting close, and we actually have a date now for the ribbon cutting grand opening. That's going to be the 13th. And it'll probably be in the morning. We don't have the time exactly set, but we'll get that information out there probably within the next couple days. But I'm looking forward to having that activity on the 13th. Wanted to mention that Service Center equestrian gate hours had been mentioned before, went into operation Monday, so the gates are closed from 9:30 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. So we just want to, again, get that information out there. So if there's any questions or that, they can give us a call. But that, again, is the Home Depot Shopping Plaza, where golf carts visit through that, and so the security with regards to our maintenance facility and everything, we wanted to make that more secure, and that's so the gates are now closed from 9:30 to 5 a.m. in the morning. The other thing I wanted to mention was our recreation revises our bus excursion reservation system. The bus excursion organized by the Recreation Department are popular, super popular actually, and are often oversold. And to provide a fair access to all interested residents, the reservations now will be made via the lottery system instead of by phone. Residents can enter the lottery card in person at the recreation office or via email at recreation@vmsinc.org. The lottery cards may be submitted for up to 4 excursions at a time. We think this will provide better access to that process and more equity with regards to that process. Upcoming bus excursions, just to let you know, lottery dates and department times real quickly. Laguna Beach Pacific Marine Mammal Center is Wednesday, March 20th. Irvine Regional Park Farmers Market is Tuesday, April 16th. Mission San Juan Capistrano is Wednesday, May 15th, and Angels Baseball, Sunday, June 9th. So don't want to miss out on some of those great activities. And finally, not something that directly involves the residents in the community, but it impacts our operation, and that is in February 8th, we put in What's Up in the Village. We talked about publication information about Assembly Bill 1826, which requires the village and other businesses to generate, whenever they're generating more than 4 cubic yards of commercial solid waste, to get into an implementation of food waste recycling program. And this organics recycling program is for the village operations only and not for the residents. But we're meeting that obligation under the state law. It is going to be an activity that will increase our participation with all the clubhouses, and we look forward to doing that. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, thank you. It is now time for open forum. At this time, the speakers may address the Board of Directors regarding items not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation. There's a maximum time limit of 3 minutes per speaker, and a speaker may only address the board once during this period. The board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted for the open forum. Whitney, do we?
Dr. Romano?
Thank you. I think I will tell you again, I represent the United Nations, and my follow-up, I'm also a forensic psychologist, which for this meeting means that I'm an expert court witness. I spoke before about my concerns on the closure of Clubhouse One and the great impact it had on the thousands of people that use that. Since then, I have done some research and realized that we're not taking good care of our vulnerable people in this community. The village has the sad rating of having the highest suicide rates in Orange County. And we also have the highest suicide rate of self-injury by medication. And I think we need to pay attention to the mental health of our community here and pay attention to the vulnerable people that utilize the Clubhouse One. Isolation is the first thing that will create suicidal ideation and impulses. And we've done a very good job of isolating by the closure of that clubhouse a lot of our community. Also, since I spoke to you last, I was made aware that there are 4 of our village members committed suicide. And I think we really need to pay attention to what we're doing and the ultimate outcome on these vulnerable people. So I have asked for news media to follow. I have given the community some recommendations of some good programs that residential facilities like this have set up to take care of and address this problem. So I hope we can put that on the agenda, that we will look for dealing with the mental health and develop a program that will reduce this rate of suicide and help our residents, thoroughly enjoy living here. These are the people that can't come over here and talk to you and who are afraid and hesitant. So I hope you give them as much consideration when you're planning, that we can coordinate our activities and do something much more. It's needed here, okay? It's not acceptable to me to be ranked the highest. I will bring in all the resources I can from the United Nations to provide other programs that have been used successfully in other countries and in other communities to give a hand. So I thank you for your attention to this and to look at really what happens when we cut off one of these programs for these needy people. Thank you for your time.
Beth, may I make a quick comment? Because we did not close Clubhouse One, and we did not even close the Clubhouse One. I think you just misspoke by accident. We didn't even close down the
Drop-in
the
lounge.
drop-in lounge. It's open.
The drop-in lounge is open. I think you're just talking about the television.
Right, that's the drop.
Right, but I understand what you're saying, and we've discussed that, but we'll discuss this further after.
Thanks for that clarity. Who's next?
Ann Russell?
Welcome, Ann.
Good morning. Ann Russell, 3079A. Following up on what Elizabeth just said, 2 men in my cul-de-sac committed suicide. One young, Mark, forget his last name, Cherry, and one man died of complications after he was revived, and that was Mark Herb Pollock. So I'm very aware of, and we don't hear about this. And I know of 2 other couples where it was murder-suicide. So this is serious business. And many of you probably have seen articles about loneliness and isolation being the illness of our planet. And if you saw LA Times yesterday, there was an ad, half-page ad, about age rate, age on, rage on. 1 of 5 people, elderly, are in poverty. And there's so much in this community. And a woman came up to me yesterday and said, we have to advocate for the elderly among us. Those people who are silent, who are not at meetings, who are not capable of dealing with all the iPods and pads and everything else. That we have to really be concerned about the people without a voice. And the thing that has brought home to me this whole business of the TV in Clubhouse One is how voiceless I am in this community. This is the 3rd time I have spoken to you and nothing has been done. Everybody's shifting. You go to Bruce, who's in charge of the office, the Clubhouse One, oh, it's Brian. You go to Brian, oh, I haven't heard. There are over 1,000 signatures. 1,000 people saying, stop treating us like babies. A man came in the other day and he said to me, when is our timeout going to expire? When? I'm not a toddler. I am a grown woman. And out of the 800 signatures, the first week that I got these, 1 person saw a disagreement. And yet the rumor is that people were fighting. Fighting? I haven't heard, other than that 1 person who saw the disagreement in April. And here we are, 3 months. You go home and you turn off your TV. You turn off your music. You wouldn't do that to your grandchildren. 3 months,
Thank you, Ann. Your time is up.
ugly.
Next.
Cash Akrakar.
There you go.
Good morning, everybody. 201E is where I live. Basically, what I want to talk about today and get some publicity, and our community is excellent in the world, one of the best ones in the world. We have all kinds of facilities, but we don't have any. We have retirees that come with over 500,000 man-years of expertise in various acumen of business, and most of them want to be retired, but still do want to contribute some of their information, some of their knowledge, part-time basis. And nobody outside wants retirees on a part-time basis. So what I'm trying to do with a group together is to put teams of these different acumen. We have people who are directors, vice presidents, presidents, owners, put them all together in teams of different aspects of business needed, and then get local industry to come in as project or contract basis and bring that funds to assist in bringing to our foundation And the profits, this will be a nonprofit organization, 501c3, will be donated to our charity for our village. I'm going to be talking about it in the next CAC meeting in detail. I thought maybe I'll get some publicity because the lady is sitting back there. And for lack of name, I'm going to call this association, this club, we have decided to put the name as Senior Brain Foundation. But that is not going to be the final name. It'll be decided by a majority when the first club meets. I want your support. I know things like this have been done in the past. There's SCORE organization, but nobody has really put time the way I want to do it, or where our group wants to do it, in putting everyone in the room together and come up with solutions, ideas. And for my own, I'm donating 2 very valuable projects for the club to take it and run and make products. One of them is a golf club that can hit 50 more yards, and it is pretty legal, but it's not fully developed. Another one is a small game that's played internationally. Proceeds of this will be
15 seconds, Cash.
I know, I understand. I know. And I really sympathize with Ann. She is trying to do her best, and I think we should support her. And welcome to our new GRF legal counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Cash.
Maxine McIntosh.
Welcome, Maxine.
Thank you, Beth Parak, and good morning, good neighbors. A couple of things I wanted to bring up, a couple of rumors that I think you can put to rest for me. One is a couple of residents said, why is the board planning to change the names of some of the clubhouses? And I said, well, I hadn't really heard that in so many words. And one of the people said, there has to be a good reason for that, not just because it can be done, or some people think it sounds good, but how does it really better serve an aging retirement community that lives here? How does it really better serve the majority, not the ones in their 50s and 60s, but the majority of the people who live here? So that's one question I'll put forward. Another one is I stopped yesterday in our drop-in lounge, and I understand that's what Dr. Romano was addressing, was the drop-in lounge, not the whole clubhouse. And, you know, we really need those volunteers back. You know, when you have a section with coffee and tea and sugar and all these cups and ice water and so forth, unfortunately, people still feel like they're in Starbucks or Pete's or the bakery cafe next to Trader Joe's, so they don't have to clean up after themselves. A lot of them feel that way, not everyone. And I noticed when I was in yesterday, all the stuff spilled on the counter and so forth. And a man next to me said, I'm going to go get, and he went over and got, I think it was Marcia on duty yesterday. And as soon as she could, she got in there and she brought in all the items that had run out. And there were no tea bags and so forth, no cups. And she immediately took care of it. She's a doll working over there at Clubhouse One, by the way. She's trying to wear all those hats as best she can, and I applaud that. But the volunteers kept everything picked up like the employees do at Starbucks. So you didn't ever see the counters this messy. I've been there 3 times over the drop-in lounge since your last meeting. And I noticed all 3 times this is a lacking that was taken care of by the volunteers. And again, if a critical situation would arise again over TV or a puzzle somebody's using or whatever, your volunteer can quickly go into the office and get the attention of that person. When it's just left up to the people sitting there, they decide, well, should I call security? Should I call 911? Should I go over to the office? There's no real plan. But your volunteers are organized and they have a plan. And I've had a number of the volunteers, because they've seen me in the drop-in lounge over the years, you know, say it's really a shame. We'd like to volunteer again. So please consider that. Another thing, with the broadband changes, I hope people are calling broadband. They're really helpful on the phone. And what worked for us was to get the, I call it a
15
set bottom
seconds,
box.
Maxine.
Okay, set bottom box instead of set top. Because then my husband can surf the channels again like he used to. It's hard to surf the channels on a digital because you have all the points. But on the analog. It's easy to do if you have a set bottom or a set top box. Call Broadband, everybody. If you have problems, they'll help you. Thank you.
That's it, Whitney? Okay, thank you so much. Responses. Go ahead, Annette.
Good morning, everyone. As Eileen Palin has mentioned, since January of 2019, this in Laguna Woods Village is our year of reaching the hard to reach. And that translates to reaching mostly our seniors here in the village that are not electronically connected. We've been able to identify this because we've been studying it for over the past year. Here in the village, Eileen has been working diligently on this. And along with that, we have VMS Social Services. They've added 3 new interns. One is from AgeWell Services. This is to help assist in the mental health of the aging here and to identify problems and help with the resolutions. So we have been working on this with our eyes open. The other thing is, here we have the Meals on Wheels that everybody's aware of, and there is, the Florence Sylvester Center, which is close by. So there are things that are going on in this village, and people are working very diligently on this problem. Now, as far as the drop-in lounge goes, that I've been keeping a log on it, and I've been visiting, and I've seen Ann Russell there quite a few times. I don't go up and introduce myself. I just come in, sit down. In some of my visits, only one time has it been messy. Now, one of the things I'm identifying here, and I'll speak about it later, but is that if it is messy, if you see something, you have to say something. It's your job as a member and as a resident here to go into the VMS office and say, please, at your earliest convenience, the drop-in lounge needs to be tidied up. And they'll come out because sometimes the food that's brought in is brought in, to share and everything else. But you're absolutely right. Some people don't think that they should throw the empty packages away and things like that, so it gets crumbs. I also wanted to have the sign put on above to the left of the sink and laminated that says what the coffee hours are, because the coffee hours are, I believe it's 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. And when I was there on Sunday, some woman came in and she wanted coffee, and she couldn't see the coffee hours because they're only on the door, and the door was open. So we're going to resolve that. So if somebody comes in and thinks there should be coffee 24/7 or 7 days a week, that's not the case. The drop-in lounge, when I was there, I'll just give you one of the incidents. 50% of the people so far have said they like it without the TV. 50% have said that they miss the television. And as I've mentioned, this is my 3rd time mentioning this, that this will be covered at the CAC meeting this Thursday, or next Thursday, March 14th at 1:30 p.m. So I advise everyone to come. We are studying these issues, and the reports will be dealt with there. And that also includes the volunteers, and whether or not, the issue will be discussed about bringing them back. The other issue that will be discussed there is the Clubhouse 4, about changing the names. The results will be in, and we've talked about that now for several months, about renaming that, and you will hear how the community voted on that one. So I think that's about the best I can give you, and we will have more on at the CAC meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annette. Anybody else? Pat?
Yes, good morning. I must say I was quite shocked when I heard the statistics that Dr. Romano brought forward. And I knew it was pretty clear that it was the television she was talking about. It's been taken about 3-4 months now to get a decision on this television. And if the fact that there was like 1,000, was it, or 1,200 people that signed a petition to get the TV back, I think that's pretty indicative of the way the people want, what the people want. I've checked that lounge out several times myself, each time hoping that I would go in there and see 2 televisions, one for CNN and one for Fox, and everybody would be happy. But you know the old saying, you can please some of the people some of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time. But to me, it is imperative that we get a decision on this and fast. Thank you.
Judith and then Diane.
I'd like to respond both to Ann Russell and Dr. Romano. Last month, I remember you brought this wonderful flyer in about loneliness and how that affects society, and I brought it to one of my training classes at hospice. For years, one thing that we've had here is the Friendly Visitors Program right out of our own social services office. And I am pleading with people to go over there and sign up. We have a lot of shut-ins in this village that can't get out at all, or they're on hospice or palliative care. So we have that in place, and you just go and visit once a week, and you make your own hours, and sometimes you play cards or talk or watch TV together, and or relieve the primary caregiver so they can go to the doctor or go to the grocery store or something of that nature. And it's a very rewarding program, and you just go down to the Social Security office and ask them about it, very little training. The other program we have that covers the village here is Memorial Care Hospice of Orange County. They do all of Orange County, however, they service a lot of patients here in this village. And so last month, I pleaded they really need help there as well. And they have found statistics. We call this palliative or hospice care or friendly visitor care an additional level of care. And they have proven that people on hospice live longer when they have a friendly visitor or a hospice caregiver. And that has been proven. And I didn't want to state any statistics because I don't have the paperwork in front of me. I wasn't expecting this. But please consider that. If you want to be a hospice caregiver here in Laguna Woods, call 452-3000, and they'll tell you when the next class is, or call our social services office and start out by being a friendly visitor. And you'll see it's very rewarding and helps our community. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Diane.
I just had a question for Annette. So the only clubhouse we're looking at changing the name of is Clubhouse 4?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is we have been studied throughout the world, and our own Laguna Woods Village Library has books on this. But Laguna Woods Village is the only community that has its own foundation. And all the numerous clubs that we have here give very generously to support the foundation. And the foundation supports the elderly in need. And they have to, of course, qualify. We have to prove that they need it, and it's done very discreetly. But there is for food, for their bills, for hearing aids, if they need crutches or whatever that they need. So we do all that here in the village. And we understand that, growing old is risky, and it's hard. And, we can't catch everyone. We can't catch everyone that's depressed. We can't catch everyone. But as far as reaching out in this community, we need everybody to roll their sleeves up and get to work and volunteer and do as much as we can to help each other. And I think we do a good job. And, like any other community of this size, things fall through the cracks. But we continue on every day. We get up and we don't think about yesterday. We keep going forward. Thank you.
I would like to say something. Dr. Romano and Ann both brought up something that tears at our hearts, that our neighbors are hurting. And I'm happy to say that we have not only a wonderful social services department, but we've added staff. We have one new staff member who's part-time, and her sole responsibility is administration of the Friendly Visitor Program. So that is a real focus that they're looking at in social services. And social services works hand in hand with our own charity in our community, the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village. And the core of that program is to help individuals who are having an emergency need. It's not an ongoing thing, it's an emergency need. And then on the other side of that, they do sponsor, the foundation gives money to Age Well for Meals on Wheels, to the Braille Institute. And one of the things, speaking of food and folks needing food, and if you check with social services, you will find out about this, is that we have a bus once a week that goes to South County Outreach, to the pantry there. So there are, if someone is in need in the community, if they just go to social services, walk in the front door here, and just past the elevators, and that's social services, and they're ready and anxious to be able to help. Thank you. Okay, what is next? Let's see, what is next is consent calendar. And Diane.
I wanted to pull the EV charging stations off the consent calendar and put it on new business, if that's okay.
12B.
Okay, so that would become 12B. Okay, anybody?
Become 13A. 12B?
Or if it goes to new business.
Is it new business or old business?
No, it's to old business.
Okay,
12B.
old,
It's
so,
not finished. It's old business. 12B.
okay.
It's not new business.
Okay.
Whatever you think.
All right, I just moved it to 12B. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. So consent calendar, do I have a motion, Joan?
I move we approve the consent calendar as amended.
Annette? Second it? All those in favor? Consent calendar, moving the consent calendar.
I'm just asking for voting on screen. No.
Don't I have to?
Pardon?
I didn't know if we're voting on.
Oh, voting on screen. Are we,
Okay,
okay, I guess we are voting on screen.
all right.
Okay, we are passed unanimously. So now we are going to move to item 12, unfinished business. Entertain a motion to approve a resolution for proposed amendments to GRF Recreation and Special Events Department policies and procedures and glossary and mandatory adherence. This was a February initial notification, 28-day notification to comply with Civil Code 4360 has been satisfied.
Okay. Resolution 90-19XX, proposed amendments to GRF Recreation and Special Events Department policies and procedures and glossary and mandatory adherence. Whereas the Golden Rain Foundation has established a Recreation and Special Events Department policies and procedures to streamline and reduce confusion regarding use of its facilities by residents. And whereas on September 13th, 2018, the CAC formed an ad hoc committee comprised of committee members and residents to review and recommend revisions to the GRF Recreation and Special Events Department policies and procedures. And whereas the emphasis of the review was on commercial activities conducted by Laguna Woods Village clubs, groups, and organizations. And whereas the Community Activities Committee recommends the amendments to the Recreation and Special Events Department policies and procedures with the insertion of the glossary and mandatory adherence, attachments 1 and attachment 2. And now therefore be it resolved March 5th, 2019, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts the proposed amendments to GRF Recreation and Special Events Department policies and procedures and glossary and mandatory adherence. And resolved further that Resolution 19-16-15 adopted December 16th of 2016, Resolution 90-15-52 adopted October 6th of 2015, Resolution 90-15-53, adopted October 6th of 2015. Resolution 90-16-32, adopted August 2nd of 2016. And Resolution 90-16-42, adopted September 6th of 2016, are hereby superseded and canceled to the extent that they differ. And resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I move that we accept this resolution.
Okay, all those in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, I did have, I'm sorry, discussion. No discussion?
Hearing none.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Are we voting on screen?
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
So, John,
Go back
it's
to
this
12B.
one, right?
Go back now to the consent calendar.
Go back to the consent calendar to B or C.
Well, the one we eliminated, C.
C, right. Okay,
Go back
this
to the
is,
consent calendar now.
we're back.
Director Troutman? Yes.
What's up? Okay,
Oh, okay, we're finishing the vote. Sorry.
oh. Okay, unanimous, it passes unanimously. So now, we are on 12B, which was consent calendar C. Am I
C.
right about that? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve supplemental funding for EV charging stations at the community center.
Resolution 90-19-XX, supplement funding for EV charging station grant for the community center. Whereas the Southern California Incentive Project, SCIP, promotes easy access to zero-emission vehicle infrastructure by offering rebates for the purchase and installation of eligible public electric vehicle, EV chargers. And whereas staff was successful in capturing a grant from the SCIP, which will provide grant partial funding for the installation of 4 additional ChargePoint CPE 200 chargers. Now therefore be it resolved, March 5th, 2019, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby authorizes supplemental appropriation from the Facilities Fund for a not-to-exceed amount of $228,000 for the installation of, insert 4 at this point, for the installation of 4 additional EV charging stations at the community center, with the understanding that the grant funds will reimburse 75% of the cost. And resolved further that staff will present a recommendation to the April GRF board meeting to award a contract. And resolved further that the officers, and it should be agents, not against, of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the Golden Rain Foundation Corporation to carry out this resolution. I move we approve this resolution.
Second, Don. Discussion. Pat and then Diane.
Yes, I move that we do not approve this. In my opinion, we do not need this at this point in time, and it's just some money that we'll be spending that we need to spend on other things. But even bigger than that is the parking issue. We will be reducing our parking spaces by 8, and we're already in a situation where most of the parking spaces are taken up a good percentage of the days. So I definitely vote against this. Thank you.
So Pat, you're not moving, you are saying that you will be voting against this?
Yes.
Right. Okay, thank you. And next is Diane.
Yeah, I speak in favor of this resolution. I just pulled it because I didn't think we had discussed it. That's why I thought it was new business. But I think that I've thought about it. I think it probably, we're looking toward the future where people will have more electric vehicles. And so we're sort of trying to be ahead of the curve if we can. But more and more people are in the village, or residents that live here actually do own electric vehicles, so they can charge their cars there. But, and I think that we found a great deal, and we want to make sure that we can take advantage of it.
Thank you. Annette is next.
I thought the staff report was outstanding because they've done so much work already in terms of getting the Town Center Association Board to approve it, the Finance Committee to approve it. I mean, if you read these reports, they have just really plowed through here, and I applaud Diane to make sure that we did discuss this on open forum out here right now. As far as being for it, a lot of, with the employee, I guess it would be replacement rate anyway. To find a new employee is hard enough. And most of our employees come from distances such as Lake Elsinore, Riverside County, and everywhere else. And I think it's a real plus if we add some more electric charging stations. So I think it would attract more employees to say, oh my gosh, I can keep, instead of a gas bill, I can do this, I can do it here. And it's cost effective. I think it's I'm fully supported. The only thing I'm wondering about is it possible maybe for staff to report at the GRF board meetings monthly until the project's completed and reimbursements received, which might be January of 2020, to make sure that we know that they are really going to make the timeline. And here's our great Ernesto.
Ernesto.
I won't say anymore.
Good morning. Madam President, board members, pleasure to be here. I thought I'd give you a quick synopsis of what this is all about. There's been interest in the community, as you know, and particularly through the your energy task force, which you have representative of in the task force, to look at the possibility of adding charging stations throughout the community. In fact, the two mutuals, Third and United, are currently under contract with a consultant to study the possibility of upgrading the infrastructure that they have to be able to do just that, to add electric vehicle charging at near their manors. So with that in mind, staff was successful in acquiring the grant. It's a very good grant. However, it has a very aggressive deadline on it. We're looking to be wrapped up by October. So we jumped on it right away, and we kind of bypassed some of our standard process to bring it to you right away to have you authorize the use of $228,000 funding, which is reimbursable at the tune of 15%. So your actual cap exposure is about $57,000 when it's all said and done. So we have, in fact, spoken to the city because we were concerned about the parking issue. They've indicated that there will not be a traffic study required of us, which we're really worried about. And then we also spoke to the association that manages the complex to make sure that we're on board of that, because although we're adding 4 bowlers, we'll be taking up 8 parking spots because each bowler has 2 connections to it. So relative to information being provided back and keeping you up to speed in it, we will definitely be informing the GRF MNC to make sure that they're aware of the process that we're taking and the milestones, and make sure that we will meet the grant deadline as we move forward with this. And we're pretty comfortable that we will, provided that we do have the authorization to move forward with the funding this today. So I'll be happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Okay, Ray is next, but since we've got Ernesto up there, if anyone has a question for Ernesto right now, we'll do that.
Yes, Ernesto, will there be any costs to us to maintain these charging stations?
Yeah, they're pretty. There's really no moving parts with this system. They're just circuitry, and it's all incorporated within the contract that we will be entering into with ChargePoint, which is the firm that will be installing the the chargers. So it will be all offset by the revenue that is collected. This is not a revenue-making proposition. It's really a convenience. And it's a forward thinking, for the community to address what we know will be the common attractions with our vehicles. Most of them are going to be manufactured in an electric sort, so we want to get ready for that. So to answer your question, no, the maintenance cost is minimal, and it will be offset by the revenue that's generated. As we entered into a contract with ChargePoint, they will provide the maintenance and they will oversee the project.
Thanks. Anyone else with a question for Ernesto before I go? And I got a list of names here that want to speak. Okay, thank you, Ernesto. Oh, you do have a question for him. Okay, Joan has a question for you. Sorry.
Ernesto, do you have an exact location? Are you talking about the area next to the existing charger?
That is correct. I think you're all familiar
Go into
with
the golf cart area, right?
Right. The boiler that we currently have located in the back, that is adjacent to our generator. What we propose to do is add the additional spots next to that so that we minimize the amount of trenching in our parking lot. We want to be able to just extend that circuit over, and we're currently investigating the capacity of the panel that we have to see if that's possible, but the intent is to add them right next to them, so we have them all in one spot.
And are these questions for Ernesto? Okay, then Dick is first, then Bert.
Does that $228,000 include transformer upgrades that are going to be required to handle the load?
It includes everything. We don't know that we'll have to upgrade a transformer. We're doing the electrical calculations right now, and our hopes is to be able to go off of the existing low capacity that we have in the transformer. But if it does require transformer upgrade, all of this is encompassed within the project scope, and it will be covered by the grant, up to 75%.
We're still on questions for Ernesto, and Dick was next.
Yeah, I'm against this resolution. We already have charging stations here, and I have never seen any results of what it's costing GRF. So we have proof of the need, and I know they're talking about the future. I'm talking about now. We have to know more about the cost. I don't know, this doesn't even cover any of the costs. So there's no fixed cost here. I don't know what the annual cost is going to be.
I can speak to that.
And
if I may.
Ernesto will speak to that. Go ahead.
So, Madam President, the concern is relative to the cost and what the GRF will be responsible for moving forward. There really isn't a cost associated with that. We're fortunate that the grant will pick up the main capital cost, which is to get the project built. But once the project is built, there's really no subsidy from GRF to maintain the project. It will be offset with the revenue that will be generated from the stations. The revenue is sufficient to maintain the stations and to allow us to keep providing the service. As I mentioned before, it will not be a revenue generator. It may in the future, but with current usage, it will not. However, it will be at no cost to GRF.
Yeah, well, that's what concerns me. The revenue, we already have a charging station here. What information can you provide us that would guarantee this income?
Relative to the income?
Yeah, offsetting costs.
Yeah, the cost, again, the income generated from there's no income. The revenue generated from the stations is sufficient to maintain the stations and to pay the contractor that will be doing the management of the stations for us. At this point, I don't know that we'll be generating revenue from it. This may change in the future as we get more electric vehicles using the stations. more outsiders using the stations. We do have a fee structure that we charge for this. There's 30 cents per kilowatt for residents and 17 cents for, for our residents and 30 cents for non-residents. And GRF vehicles charge for free, which is a benefit as well. So it's not a revenue generator, but it will provide enough revenue to maintain it. So it'll be revenue neutral.
Well, what about our existing charging stations?
It's providing enough revenue just to maintain the stations.
Well, I have never seen any information about what.
We did present a full report to the Energy Task Force, which the Energy Task Force review, and they made a recommendation to move forward with it. The usage is minimal at this point, but again, this is just a way of looking forward to what we all know is coming, and it's that more electric vehicles will come into the community and people will be looking for a place to charge them.
Annette would like to talk to Dick's question.
Okay, and then Ernesto, you can help me out here, but how this works is people come up to the charging station and they put in a credit card, and then they get charged for whatever use. Now, once their car's full, if they don't move that car, they get charged the maximum rate that they can get charged. So basically, they can charge several cars, several vehicles per day. And a side note to that is our security department now, if we get these things, we'll be able to get more like electric vehicles that'll be better for this community because we charge for free. But we have a third party that takes care of that billing for that credit card, and they take whatever it costs to the electric to charge it, and then we do get back a remuneration. But right now, it is new. It's only been in place a few years, and we don't occupy it as much as we see the growth for that in the future. But it does, from the day one, I think it just pays for itself in terms of that. And we do have people that use it here in the community, and I believe that there'll be more people using it if we have it available. More people when their leases expire, instead of getting a gas vehicle, they might consider getting a hybrid. And that's what we're looking for, because all of the DMV has, or the state of California has all kinds of things going in 2020 and 2024 for electric vehicles, and doing a big switch that if you're not aware of that, this is going to roll right over us unless we start looking at it.
Okay, we are still on any questions for Ernesto. They can sit down when we're finished. Any questions for Ernesto? Okay, thank you, Ernesto. And now my list, and Joan has my list. Ray is next.
We talked about the parking situation regarding the security movement at the last meeting, and the fact that they're also going to be utilizing more electrical vehicles. So all we have to do, and it's being brought forth, it's being looked to, we have to reconfigure the parking situation. We have additional parking behind, not on the lower level, but the upper level, and if that is insufficient, we got the dirt behind that. We have plenty of room. That can be taken care of. We discussed it. It's in the process of being done right now. And that is an extremely important situation. In the spaces that are lost down here, certainly can be reconfigured on the upper level. No big problem. It's handled easily.
Thank you, Ray. Who's next? Bert is next.
Probably somebody can speak to M&V for one thing. What are their plans with regard to electric vehicles? Secondly, if you just look at what you read in the papers today with regard to the manufacturers producing electric vehicles, this is coming, and coming very quickly. It is supported by the state of California, and there are incentives for people to buy electric vehicles. And I have to support this, because if we're not here with the charging capability, when people want to buy electric vehicles, they're going to go elsewhere, and we will lose sales.
Who's next? Okay, then I saw Judith's hand up.
Are we not using the electric? I'm on the electric list. So, okay, I'll manually raise my hand. Okay, so she was first?
I don't know.
Okay, okay. I'm going to vote in favor of this because I'm looking to the future. When Governor Brown was in charge, at least 2 years ago, he came up with this policy that by 2045, he wanted 90% of the vehicles on the road to be energy efficient, and I think the new governor also adopted that. So we need to start looking at our demographics, and I see more and more electrical cars or hybrids here in the village. California has a program now, Cal EVIP. It's California EV Incentive Program. So both they and SCE, Southern California Edison, have rebates of up to $1,000. They have tax credits, they have savings, and quite a few other things to encourage people to buy these cars. So you know they're going to be buying them with all of those benefits. And I think we need more charging stations because we're going to get more electric vehicles. And so to me, this is just looking to the future, and everything Ernesto said was correct. So I'll be in favor of this.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to my neighbor here. He did say that we could take this land and change it to parking spaces. However, we must realize that the parking spaces have to be public parking spaces. So if we take our own land and put more parking spaces on there, that's not going to help with our grant. Our grant is specific to spots that can be public. That was one thing I wanted to say. And the second thing I wanted to say is that we came up with $57,000 we have to pay, something like that. What's the payback? How long do we think that's going to take to pay it back at the kind of speed that we're going to be getting from the income on these electric charging spaces? I believe it will take a long time to pay that back. Thank you.
We generally don't get people to pay back. That's when we find a need for an asset, or, right? So in this case, we think we need the more EV charging stations. We have the users pay to maintain it, but generally speaking, we like the lawn bowling, we put all that in, but we didn't charge them, right? We're providing the facility. So this is just another facility or another service that we're providing. And if we raise the rates, perhaps we could get more, but really, we're just trying to maintain it, that's all. We go ahead and out of our reserves, we'll make the contribution to actually pay for its installation.
Yeah. And most of these things I was going to mention haven't been mentioned, but we discussed this in detail at our last committee meeting. And it's a win-win situation. 75% of it is going to be paid for out of this grant, and you sure don't want to turn that down. We're getting more electric vehicles. In fact, Pat owns one. And a hybrid. And yeah, but it's a win-win situation. We have the parking spaces now. We will be short a few. We have empty parking spots out there right now, but in the future, they'll be filled. But we've talked about this, and it's definitely a plus for our community.
I happen to own both an all-electric vehicle and a hybrid. I charge it in my garage at 220 volts. These charging stations will charge at 220 volts, so it'll be a more rapid charge. Even with my hybrid, people within this community, how many people here drive more than 47 miles a day? Very few, okay? That says that every night I can recharge my car without buying a gallon of gas. I've got 1,900 miles on my car, and I have put 6 gallons of gasoline in that car. You compute my mileage. Okay, that's all.
Bert, we can't compute that. Sorry.
Quick,
Okay, anybody?
get out your iPhones.
We
Anybody
have
else
several
want to
speakers on
speak
this.
Other speakers?
We have several
We
speakers.
do have
on
other
this.
speakers, okay. Yes.
Sean Tumpain.
Good morning, I guess.
Welcome.
Sean Fontaine, 37A. Just a couple of things. The community evolves naturally. The issue of parking will take care of itself over time. It always does. If you have private property, public property, you can figure out your parking spaces to ensure that you're in compliance with local laws and whatnot. The win-win aspect that was mentioned just a moment ago is true only if this actually is a grant-based function. 171,000 out of the projected 228 not to exceed leaves you 57,000 short, and Ms. English pointed out, how do you get that back? Well, you don't. It's an amenity. That's why you're doing it. You're not doing it because you want to make money and get it paid for. Ask the pickleball players. They're going to open this grand thing that they built up on Moulton, and they ain't paying for it. So, I mean, they have in a roundabout way. My question is, what happens if you don't get it done by October? You're allocating $228,000 to this project with the anticipation of getting $171,000 back, thereby only costing you $57,000. If you don't get it done by October, you're going to pay $228,000. That's a hell of a lot more than the 57 that you're anticipating incurring. My question has to do with the procedural points in regard to the board. Do you need to have an appropriation of $228,000, or should it be an appropriation for $57,000 with the caveat that you will front the money to get it paid and to get it reimbursed afterwards, as opposed to appropriating $228,000 when you get the $171,000? What happens to that money that you spent and allocated to that? That's just a question. I don't know how it works, Diane. I'm sure
Yeah, we have to do the 228.
you do 228 and get
Right.
reimbursed back.
Yes.
And then how do you account for it when you get the $171,000 back? That go just back into the general reserve fund, or what?
It would reduce the cost of the project, I think is what it would do. So it would go back into, it's a reserve expenditure.
Okay, so it goes
would
back
just-
into the reserve.
Yeah.
You replenish it. Okay, that's great. The one thing that you said, Ms. Sewell, that I beg to differ, the vehicle cost isn't free. If you have vehicles that are village vehicles that are electric, that goes into the budget for the operation within those particular facilities, whatever you're using them for. But it's part of the budget, so it's a no cost. I think you are no cost. Where free, we use the word free way too much. And unfortunately, I have a gas guzzler out front, and I won't be using these
10 seconds.
things, so it doesn't really affect me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Who's next?
Juanita
Oh,
Skillman.
Judith has a question. Go ahead.
I meant to respond to Director Tippett's question about M&V. Right now, we cannot get electrical vehicles with the handicap accessories. They just don't make them. But staff has their eye on it. It's something that will come in the future, and they're just keeping a close eye on it. When we can get them, we'll get them. So it's not that we don't want to. They just don't make them with the ramps and all the handicap accessories right now.
Thank you.
I'll be bringing that up on review of bus operations, the schedule for March 15th. That will be brought up at the meeting for the particular board. That's being looked into already.
Juanita Skillman.
Welcome, Juanita.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to speak in favor of this, and I ask you all, as fellow board members, we need to look to the future. We need to be proactive instead of reactive. We may not have as many electric vehicles right now, but believe me, in the coming years, we're going to. Many of the car manufacturers in the next even 3 to 5 years are not going to be making gas cars. They're going to be making hybrids or electric vehicles. I have a lease car, and believe me, when my lease is up this summer, I'm getting an electric car because I don't drive that much. around the village. So the 47, whatever it is that Bert said, is just fine for me. Now, I do have to disagree just a little bit with what Judith said, because there are more to our vehicles here in the village than just the bus system. When you think of staff cars, when you think of security cars, those all, as we move forward in the future, can be electric and would be not only more environmentally good for the state and the village and the world, but also less expensive for us to do. So let's not think about today. Let's think about tomorrow, and think about your families. How many of you have children or grandchildren who are going to be driving electric vehicles, and they can't come visit you because there's no place to charge their car when they get here? I've heard that on a number of occasions. I have to speak as president of United just a little bit to say it's wonderful for people like Bert who can have a garage in Third and put in their own charging station. We don't have that opportunity in United. And so we do look to the community to help us in charging cars now and in the future. So I very much encourage you to vote yes on this.
Thank you, Juanita.
Dick has a comment.
Dick has a comment.
Second time.
No,
Wait.
Wait, okay.
Okay, just a minute, but Dick has a comment first. Go ahead, Dick.
Well, I don't want to leave the impression that I'm
Microphone.
against electric cars.
Turn your mic
I'm
on.
for electric cars that are owned by this community.
Turn your mic on, Dick. Sorry.
But I was saying, I'm not against electric cars. I'm against the public using this facility to charge their cars. We're not benefiting, I don't think, for years before we can pay for it. But if we had electric cars used by the staff here, then we're talking about really saving money. So I'm all in favor of, in fact, I've been pushing for electric cars for staff, and I will continue to do so. But to try and serve all the community, you're really sticking our neck out. Now, electric cars are not as cheap as the gasoline cars. So a lot of people here are still going to be driving, like me, gasoline cars. I don't care what the state says, that's what I'm going to be driving. So the idea that we're going to serve all the community, my concern is, what about our community here? How are we going to save money? And that is by going more electric cars for staff use. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dick. Okay, Maxine. Welcome.
And I'm sorry I interrupted you, Richard. I hadn't heard her call on you. I certainly wholeheartedly approve of this. You know, this is not a dream. This is not a small group's desire that they think they can do something good for people. This is, I think, a necessity. And I'm glad to hear that you're addressing it. My concern is, a year and a half ago, when I was on the United Board of Directors, I was appointed to our parking study committee, and we were checking all the available parking very diligently, very early in the mornings for many weeks throughout our cul-de-sacs. And it made me more aware of when I heard people talk about parking problems. And you know, most of the complaints that I heard, and thinking back even the year before then, were about Clubhouse 1, Clubhouse 2, and Clubhouse 4 running out of parking, especially 2 and 4. And so I'm very concerned about losing any parking places when we're short of parking places. And as my colleague over here mentioned, on the 13th, you open the new pickleball courts, and that will probably increase the need at Clubhouse 2. More people will be out to play on the beautiful new courts. So I'm just wondering, you know, is there some way some lawn area that isn't in use can be taken over for additional parking, that a shack or a storage shed can be moved somewhere further back from the street to allow for this parking. I'm hoping there can be some creative searching around and finding spots for this parking, particularly at those three, if it's going in the future, if some of it ends up at those three clubhouses, just to try to keep that in mind, because we do run very short of parking there. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine. Anybody else?
There's no more speakers.
No one else? Anyone else on the board? Okay. We've got a motion on the floor. And it has been seconded, and we are going to vote on the screen. Please vote. Okay, the motion passes 9 yes, 2 no. Thank you. Committee reports, starting with Finance Committee Director Phelps.
Okay. Just wait for the slides to come up. We're going to begin our review of the preliminary financial statements using some new slides we've been working on. I hope that you like them. Okay, are we at slide 1 yet? Thank you. This slide should look familiar. Through January 31st, 2019, total revenue for GRF was nearly $3.7 million compared to expenses of just under $3.2. This resulted in net revenue of $500,000. Next slide. Slide 2. This is the first column on the left of this slide shows.
Just a minute, Diane, please. Please, ma'am, please, we can't hear the director speaking.
The first
ahead,
column
Diane.
to the left of this new slide shows the same income statement figures as slide 1. The second column shows the amount budgeted, and the variance from budget is shown in the third column. Each year, GRF passes a budget and a capital plan, which are used to determine how much our monthly assessments will be. It's important to compare the actual preliminary financial figures to budget each month to make sure we're staying on track. We can see here that GRF ended the period better than budget by $271,000. On the next 2 slides, I'll highlight the most significant areas in which the figures varied from budget, both favorably and unfavorably. The variances on, excuse me, the variances, let's see, okay, sorry. The variances on this some variances are temporary because they're due to timing. This is especially noticeable in the first few months of the year. We spread the budgeted amount evenly throughout the year, but expenditures don't always occur evenly each month. This month, the most significant examples of variances we had due to timing are materials and supplies, which were favorable by $65,000, repairs and maintenance favorable by $58,000, and professional fees, which were favorable by $33,000. Also on this list is utilities. So some variances result from actual operational savings. So for example, we had $35,000 in utilities expense. We had savings of $35,000 because all of the rain in January resulted in less water usage for irrigation. On the flip side, however, you'll see on the bottom that we actually had a loss of revenue in golf operations due to the same rain. So it saved us money, and in this case, it reduced our golf operations revenue by $38,000. Slide 4. And this is just another, we added this slide as a visual representation of the largest budget variances. The green bars going to the right show the favorable variances in the expense categories I mentioned, materials and supplies, repairs, and so on. And the orange bar going to the left demonstrates the unfavorable variance in golf revenue. The next slide. This pie chart should be familiar. It shows our expenses to date of $2.8 million, excluding depreciation. Our largest categories of expenses are compensation, cable TV, utilities, and so forth. The ratio of these expenses will change as expenses are incurred throughout the year. Next slide. This is another familiar pie chart. It shows our sources of revenue other than assessments. To date, we've received $1.1 million in non-assessment revenue. By category, our largest revenue is generated by broadband services. This is for premium channels and set-top box or set-top bottom rentals, followed by trust facilities fees, golf operations, and so forth. These revenues offset costs and help keep the assessments down. Because of the importance to our reserves of the trust facilities fees, we've added this slide to try to show monthly resale data. Community-wide, sales totaled 54 in January 2019. This is up from sales of 49 last year and down from sales of 76 in 2017. Sales generate the $5,000 trust facilities fee that is expected to account for 62% of this year's contributions to GRF's reserves. The trust facility fee reduces the amount we pay into reserves in our monthly assessment. It's come down from over $30 a few years ago down to $17 per manor per month this year. We keep a close eye in finance on the operating portion of our financial results, so the operating fund income statement without depreciation is shown here. Operations had total revenue of $3.1 million and expenses, that's not right. A 3.1 and expenses of 2.8 million, which resulted in an operating surplus of 255,000. As I mentioned previously, much of the savings is due to timing. And now the next slide. So now we're going to get into some detail about our reserve and contingency funds. You've seen this slide before. The adjusted balance of each of the funds is shown here. Starting with the first column on the left, the funds show a combined ending balance of $28.8 million. Included in this total are contributions received this year through assessments, trust facilities fees, and interest earnings. The second column shows work in progress of $5.4 million, reflecting the amounts paid for projects not yet complete. The third column shows the resulting adjusted fund balances of $23.4 million. Moved on to slide 10, sorry. The purpose of this new slide is to provide some historical perspective by comparing the adjusted reserve and contingency fund balances for 5 years in which the balances averaged about $23 million. You can also see the size of each of the funds relative to the other funds. Okay, and the last slide. This slide replaces the old slide 7 that listed total appropriations and remaining encumbrances by fund. This new slide provides the same bottom line data, but gives more information on where the money is committed. For example, the first line shows we have appropriated $636,000 for aquatics and fitness, $565,000 of which has not yet been spent. Further down the list, you can see we've appropriated $400,000 for improvements to the garden centers, of which $90,000 has not yet been spent. And then in the bottom, did it make it? Does the bottom of it not? Well, anyhow, in the bottom, if you see, the bottom line shows that the remaining encumbrances against our reserve and contingency funds is $17.2 million. That's it for the slides. Excuse me. I hope the new slides gave you more insight into our finances. However, I realize that an effort to be transparent may also have been more boring. So not everyone is as excited about numbers as I am. So let me know what you think. I want to thank Betty Parker and her staff for their work on the slides. They went above and beyond to get this done by today's meeting. I remind you that we have more detail in our GRF finance meeting agenda packets, which are available online and at the meetings. Excuse me, the variance report was not included in this month's agenda packet. We felt it was confusing because it references line items of schedules that are not included in the GRF agenda. So I just want to let you know a couple of things. The KPMG audit of our 2018 financial statements is underway. KPMG will meet again with the boards on April the 1st. And at last month's finance meeting, Merrill Lynch, BlackRock reviewed the portfolios of United, Third, and GRF. And also, I want to tell you that our next finance meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April the 24th at 1:30 here in the boardroom. That's it for the finance report. Thanks for your time.
Diane, thank you so much. Wow, the difference in clarity by using those slides. And thank you to Betty and her team, and to you and your team, and let's give them a big hand. Really brought much more understanding to the discussion of numbers. Yes, anybody else want to say anything before we move on? Okay, thank you. It's now Community Activities Committee. Annette.
All right, the Community Activities Committee did not meet in February, so I have no report. We've been very busy putting together the agenda for the March 14th, 2019 Community Activities Committee meeting, which will be here in the boardroom at 1:30 p.m. So I'd like you to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Maintenance and Construction, Director Mattson.
Just to give you a little bit of what's going on here, I'll read this. Civil work project at gates 1 through 4, 7, 8, 9, and 14. Work on gate 2 and gate 8 continues. Concrete and asphalt work has been completed at gate 2. Installation of cameras, gate arms, and security equipment is progressing in gate 8. This phase was scheduled for completion in March. However, due to weather, completion may be moved to the first week of April. Staff is finalizing your logistics for the next phases, which will include gates 3 and 7. Pickleball and paddle tennis court, our CEO reported a little bit on this earlier. Final details are being completed on this project. Landscaping repair and asphalt finish coats are scheduled to be completed in the first week of March. We anticipate the grand opening will be scheduled for mid-March, but you actually have a date. Okay, community center HVAC and controls upgrade. On-site installation of the digital controller wiring, the replacement of the rooftop broiler, the variable air volume controllers, and both split system AC units in the silver room have been completed. HVAC fabrication should be complete in April. HVAC installation will start in May. The project in its entirety is scheduled to be completed by the end of June. Also in our M&C meeting, we have 27 items in our project log, and one of them was a repair to the tennis building, which is a 39 feet by 27 foot existing building that's quite old. And so at the meeting, the president of the club showed up, the tennis club showed up, and wanted us to consider extending that small building to 10 feet on the north end, and then putting another cover 10 feet past that so people can sit out with some chairs. And we talked about the problems that would arise with connecting a new building to one that's probably 40 years old, and decided not to do it. So what the president decided, well, instead of giving us an extension on the existing building, why don't you just give us a cover that goes out 20 feet, and we'd be satisfied with that. So at our next meeting, which is April the 10th, staff will have a price for a 20-foot by 27-foot cover on the north side. So we'll go ahead and do that, and hopefully that'll help them. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. And next is the, with Jim and the maintenance and construction, there are two pieces. The first one is a report of the Performing Arts Center Renovation Ad Hoc Committee, and that would be my report. And the report is, I have no report. We are still waiting for the architects to come back with the architectural design for that building. So hopefully, next month, I will be saying, yes, we will be meeting and discussing those designs that have come back in, hopefully. And next, after that, under Jim's M&C committee, is the Village Energy Task Force, and that is Director Moldow.
Well, the task force has not met, but will be meeting, actually, tomorrow. They will be meeting in this room at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Thank you, Bert. And next, we have the report of the Media and Communications Committee, and this is Director Milliman.
Okay, we met last Tuesday, February 26th, and several things came up that might be interesting for you. One of the main things we discussed yet again is what to do if you don't have a digital television. And many complaints, as usual, but bottom line seems to be that we need to have some kind of a DTA box or some kind of an over-the-top box in order to get all the stations that you want. And the best deal that we can offer is a $4.95 a month box that will solve the problems of too many stations on one and not being able to find the same station on at the same place. And all those problems will go away if you rent the little DTA box. Sorry about that. We're still working to drive the cost down, but that's the best we can do at the moment. The next thing, so that was the main discussion of what's going on. Mr. Holland also reported that there's a great deal of ongoing maintenance and repairs to the fiber optic nodes and cables, and that's a constant repair, and so that we can receive the cable that we are entitled to. Marketing and communications report from Ms. Poland. One of the things she mentioned were the signs that were created for the gate closures, and you've probably noticed them going up and down Calais Aragon. You notice that gate 2 is closed. Please use gate 1 or 3. All the different things that her department puts out, she mentioned, keeping residents informed about the gate construction. We're going to be behind a little bit because of the weather. The gate construction that was supposed to be finished in 6 weeks probably won't be finished until into April. That's gates 2 and 8. So just be aware, they're a little behind, again, because of the weather. Ms. Poland said that the review for the photography and filming in our village, the subcommittee is still working on that, and the policy's been drafted, but needs a little more tweaking, and you're going to be hearing about that soon. One of the things that came up was to have a standard docent tour, and the docent tours have been very helpful, but now what we're going to do is to standardize the tour so that everything that you're supposed to see on the tour is seen, and so that people are not going off or skipping parts of the very valuable tour we have. And also to make sure that the general speech that's given is the same, or at least similar, so that the same points are made by each docent, excuse me. There will also be training for the new docents, and we're putting out a call for docents. We need a few more so that if you're interested, and can apply through Miss Becky Jackson here on the second floor. And that pretty much covers my report for today. Thank you. Our next meeting will be in March 18th at 1:30 here in the boardroom. Question? Becky, did you want to come up? You can give the plug for the docents. Thank you.
Okay. Directors of the board, thank you for hearing me out here. We do have an interview in progress. We have members from each mutual, or like a representative from each mutual coming in from United, Third, and GRF, and we also have a senior docent that will be conducting the interviews on March 14th. That'll be Thursday, and we have 5 candidates so far. It'll be clear that the docent tours will be standardized, and we also have a brochure in place that's already in for graphic art. And we're very excited about these candidates. So from that, 5 candidates will be selecting down to, I believe, 3. So if there's any other questions about the standardization or selection process, I'm available for questions. No? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, basically, before we go on to listen to the next report, I just want to make a correction. The report of Village Energy Task Force, here in our open meeting, basically, packet, it says 9 a.m., and when Bert was speaking, he said 1, but TMEP shows it's actually 1:30 to 3:30 tomorrow here in the boardroom. So I just want to make sure if anybody wants to attend, that's the time it will be. And next, we'll listen to the report of the Media and Communications. Oh, I'm sorry, we just did that. I apologize. Next, it's the report of the Mobility and Vehicles Committee by Director Gross. Thank you.
At the last February meeting for the Mobility and Vehicles, we requested, or a request was made to make approval for a bus system study by an outside contractor, and this is being looked into and hopefully will be taken care of. If, in fact, it is taken care of, which I'm sure it will be, we'll be having a preliminary date for the community input meeting for the study of just this, because there was so much information put out at the meeting last month that is being looked into, and we want to make sure that it's being done so that the people, that the contractors will be there to answer the questions that are being presented and so forth and so on. We're going to be reviewing the bus purchases options, which is scheduled for March the 15th at 11 o'clock, and it's going to be across the street at the bus location where they do the oiling and so forth and so on. And hopefully we'll have some mobility people on the board that will be there to give us some good option information there. Also, we received new scrubber for the underground parking cleaning on 2/28/19. We received a new boom lift for landscape maintenance staff, which will be delivered in early March. And we have a replacement van for the Plan-A-Ride van, which will be delivered in March or beginning of April. And the next meeting will be April the 3rd at 1:30 in this location.
Thank you, Ray. Any comments, questions for Ray? Okay. Report of the Security and Community Access Committee, Director Tibbetts.
I'd like to add a little bit to what Joan said about the gate access. It has increased the traffic at Gate 1 quite a bit. Can you go past Gate 2, then you've got to wait at there's a long wait there on El Toro to turn left to go down to Gate 1, but it's working out. We're not getting many complaints at all. This, as Joan mentioned, it's Gate 2 and 8 will be about a week or 2 behind schedule because of the rains, but we'll get back on schedule. We talked a little bit about golf cart drivers who are not getting their stickers. And we are going to recommend a fine of $100 when security stops and writes a ticket, which they're going to be doing. There's going to be an increase on that. And security is spending a lot of time on these violators, and because they are charging their golf carts and not paying for it. And that's not fair to the rest of us. Noteworthy incidents, we had 2 drunk driving arrests, either because of the alcohol or a mixture of alcohol and drugs or whatever, but the one ran into a structure at gate 1 and another one ran into the structure at gate 3. Security called the sheriff department and the people were arrested. So if you're taking medication or you're drinking, just be careful what you're doing. At this time, I'd like Mr. Ray Gross to report on traffic.
The committee met on February the 20th, 2019. The committee's purpose is to make sure that our community is protected from excessive speeding and other traffic violations, such as improper parking, unauthorized commercial vehicle parking, and/or operation, etc., which can jeopardize the safety of our residents. Violators are ticketed by our security personnel, and on most occasions, a fine is levied to encourage violators to follow our village safety rules. The responsible parties for ticketing vehicles are offered a choice of paying the fine after notification by security or attending a traffic school, which is in this building, for 2 hours. The committee is comprised of 4 directors, 1 each from United, 3rd, 50, and GRF. Cited people are scheduled from 9 a.m. to 12 noon and from 1 to 3 p.m. as necessary. At the hearing, each case is discussed and fines levied as appropriate. The committee provides leniency whenever possible and is determined by major vote after further discussion by the committee after the evidence part of the hearing. First-time offenders are offered a chance to partake in a 2-hour traffic school, as mentioned earlier. That's only good if it's within a 3-year period. Hearing results are in the village only, and the results are not given to DMV or to the insurance companies. The hearings are not open to the public. At the last meeting, 16 people were scheduled for a hearing, of whom 2 didn't show up, resulting in automatic determination of the fines proposed by the security. If you do not show up, it's an automatic guilty thing until you come in and appeal it, if that be the case. Of the 14 who appeared, 11 were found to be responsible for the offenses and to deserve the fine. 1 had the offense and the fine waived, and 1 was found responsible for the offense but received no fine. 1 other person was referred back to staff. That was a situation that got out of hand, so to speak. These 16 people received 26 violation notices. By the way, when people come in, I check if it's noted that there's no driver's license noted on the NOV. I make sure to look at those driver's licenses by the officer. That way we're sure of security and for the insurance. That's extremely important. 5 people appealed to the committee by letter. Of those, 4 were determined to be responsible for the offense and fined, and 1 was found responsible for the offense but had the fine waived. These 5 people received 13 violation notices, and the next traffic hearing committee will be held February 20th, 2019. When the people send in a letter, we view them the same way as if someone was being actually here, where we show the videos to see what the situation happens to be, whether speed or stop signs or whatever. So it's as if they're here automatically, it's done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Next report will be by Director Strawman, reporting on disaster preparedness.
Could I ask a question first?
Sure, certainly.
Ray, when is the next traffic school? When do we offer that?
Oh, the traffic school is at a various time. What happens is that a letter is sent out. We tell the people, you'll get a letter within 2 weeks from the time of the traffic hearing. This will advise you of a particular name and a phone number. You can call that number and say you'd like to attend traffic school. He will then tell you when the traffic school is available. It's a 2-hour class in this building, but you can only do it within a 3-year period. If you've had more than time after time after time, you cannot come to traffic school.
Okay, so within 2 years. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Judith.
Also, you said the next meeting was February 20th. That already passed. What's the next meeting, actually?
March.
Or hearing, I mean, yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon. It's going to be, April.
Okay, thank you.
March.
Nope.
March 20th?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It says next meeting is April 17th, 2019. That's what it's got here.
No, it's March 20th. It's, the traffic hearings are most likely March 20th.
Okay, we'll go with that.
That's correct. It will be March 20th.
Okay.
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's March 20th, and at this time, we'll have Director Troutman report on disaster preparedness.
Thank you, Director Tibbetts. The last meeting we had, the last scheduled meeting, was January 29th at 9:30 here in this boardroom. And just to highlight that meeting, we looked at our clubhouses, which we call care and reception centers. And we looked at, in the worst-case scenario, would those care and reception centers or clubhouses be efficient and safe for things like flow of traffic, the room for first aid? Is there a place for a first aid service station? What about a check-in area, information desk? Where would the radio operators be, et cetera, et cetera? So during the month, Debbie Belisarios and the chief and Bruce Bonbright got together with each of the clubhouse coordinators and went through their respective assigned clubhouses, and along with the manager of that clubhouse, and determined all of these factors above and exactly what would the best use and efficiency be for each one of those care and reception centers. We also had radio communications. Bruce Bonbright is in charge of our ham radio station over at Clubhouse One, and he gave an in-depth presentation of how our present radio system works, and he found several weaknesses and inefficiencies. Our present system has 75% loss in reception due to the type of outdated equipment we now have. He recommended a few inexpensive changes to our present radios. For only approximately $336, he can adjust with one little piece all 18 of our radios for a total of $336, which would significantly improve our reception. Our present radios, to have to replace the whole radio, cost $1,200 each. So if you do the math, that's a significant amount of savings just to spend the $336 for these particular parts to fix our radios. So he also said the installation of a radio antenna on the roof of this building, the community center, would also significantly increase the use and efficiency of the radio reception. He also recommended new placements for antennas and the use of receivers or repeaters for maximum coverage and operation, and which includes also the towers. He's suggesting that we put an antenna on there. So GF will probably be getting a request in the near future for these antennas. So then the office manager gave his report. The total sales for the year of 2018 in disaster preparedness supplies was $5,753. Total deposits for the year of 2018 was $5,365. For the last 2 months of 2018, we only sold $157 for November and $126 for December. And in 2017, we sold over $1,500 in supplies. We think the drop in sales is due to the new location of the Disaster Preparedness Office, which is now in this little cubbyhole at the end of this office in this building, or at the end of this hallway. So, but that's just a temporary place. Okay, next, we had an unscheduled meeting with the towers on February 27th. Chief Moore called a special task force. The towers, Christian Orr, invited us all to lunch, And the goal was to provide guidance, for us to provide guidance and insight to their own emergency operating plan. They have contracted with the same company, Ellen Lopez and Associates, that developed our newest plan last year. The goal is for this plan to be synchronized with that of the rest of the village. You have to remember, they still are managed by PCM, and we're by VMS, so this has to be a partnership agreement. We would like to use, what they would like to use, are already trained coordinators and good neighbor captains to mentor their people. So during the training phase, and once they have it all, you know, everybody in place and everybody's trained, then we can just back off and just be of help when they have a real emergency. So we're working on that. We'll have more meetings to come. And because the towers, you know, is set up considerably different than ours, they have to have a different operating plan, and they're looking at things like they're, you know, 2 elevators for 14 floors, and how do they get people down, how do they egress, and things of that nature. And they have floor captains instead of building captains. So there'll be more discussion on that at the next meeting, which is March 26th at 9:30, right here in the boardroom. And that's all I have to say on that. And the schedule, just for the training schedule, I want to mention. We have diabetes and stroke was, okay, that was Monday. Basic first aid training will be Monday, April 15th from 1 to 4 at Clubhouse 7. Good neighbor captain training, and like I say, you can go just to find out what's going on. There's free coffee and munchies. Wednesday, May 1st from 2 to 4 at Clubhouse 7. And adult CPR AED training Wednesday, June 5th from 1 to 4, Clubhouse 7 again. And then another good neighbor captain's training in July on the 6th. Now, that's on a Saturday for those who work, and that'll be from 10 in the morning till noon, again at Clubhouse 7. And you can pick up these schedules right here in the Disaster Preparedness Office in the corner of this building. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Judith. Thanks, Don.
Our next security meeting is scheduled for April 22nd at 1:30 in this room. That concludes our reports.
Thank you. I have a question, Judith. The $300 and some that is needed to upgrade the radios, I'm thinking, could you bring it, I would think it would be to Don's committee, to security, to bring that to the next security meeting and see
That's
if
Chief Moore's intention, because we think it's in his budget without even asking for anything. The antennas would be a different story. But just to upgrade these radios, it's like a no-brainer, you know, rather than buy new
Okay,
radios.
so it's within the chief's budget anyway, and we don't.
The radio parts will be.
Oh,
But
okay.
the antennas, that's going to be a little more costly, you know, putting antennas on buildings, but that'll be a different story.
And that'll go
Right, correct.
to security.
And yeah, and GRF would pay for that. We're not sure who, probably GRF would pay for the one on the towers as well, but we haven't gotten that far yet.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Next. Mattson.
So I came in and looked at the agenda at the meeting, and there was one report and one item for discussion. I thought I'd probably be out of here in 15 minutes. 2 hours later, there's a lady jumping up and down in the back, waving her arms and calling. And so anyway, the Aliso Creek, there was a lot of people, quite a few people that were not knowledgeable about how many different organizations are involved in that, and as far as the weed control and everything, that took quite a while. And then once we hit Roundup, then people really got excited. And but what staff is doing, from a GRF standpoint, we have not decided to use Roundup or not use Roundup, but what is going on now, while we're talking here, there are 2 test grounds where different chemicals are being used to, on test items, different kinds of weeds, I guess, to see how the weeds respond to the chemical application. And our next meeting is March the 20th, and we should get an input on how that's going. In fact, we need to probably go out and visit those 2 test areas and see how that. So, anyway, that concludes my report. Oh, and the next meeting, March the 20th, coming up real quick, so.
Thank you, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Judith?
Since that meeting wasn't televised, I just want to say one thing that staff brought up that's very important. So many people were worried about Roundup on their grass. If you see green, Roundup has not been used there because Roundup kills everything. And I do know they have some special product out that doesn't do that, but that's not what we're talking about. So don't be worried about Roundup on your grass or hurting your animals. If it's green, there's no Roundup there, so keep that in mind.
Good information. Thank you, Judith. Yes, Bert?
I think the point being is that Roundup is being used at the edging from the beds where the grass grows into the beds. They're trying to eliminate that, and that's where they're using the Roundup.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
I have a
Don?
question. Who's in charge, which committee is in charge of the garden plots? Is that landscape?
Yes.
The
No,
recreation?
recreation is the garden plots.
Yeah, I know, remember Mike, the supervisor, when he was here, he would send out letters to the individual plot people when the weeds got pretty high. They're over 5 foot high there in a lot of plots. And as you know, it really looks bad. It brings in a lot of stuff you don't want. Who can that be reported to?
So hopefully Annette's going to be able to speak to that.
I can definitely speak to that. Actually, this coming Saturday, there is a all-volunteer, come, not only pull out your weeds,
Yeah.
but pull them out along the sidewalks and everything else. So that's scheduled for this Saturday.
Well, the problem, a lot of people will get a garden plot, it seems so exciting and all that, but once the weeds start, they lose interest and just leave.
I can tell you, as a new garden plot owner at Garden Center 2.
Yes, I know you
And
are.
I know that Sue Margolis is the president of the Garden Club.
Good.
And she's over at the Garden Center 1, and she's very active. So I think that, as a matter of fact, she's working with Brian on some new rules and some other things. So it's in, I guess, it's a work in progress right now. And, but they are looking at all that stuff.
All right. Thank you,
But-
Annette.
But this Saturday, if anybody's out and about and needs to feel the urge to pull some weeds and stuff like that, you can come over to either one of our garden centers and you can help. Thank you.
Thank you.
What time and where?
Okay, I don't know the time, but I would think at 10 o'clock would definitely be a good time. And it'll be probably 10 to 4, but I'm just guessing. I probably would say it'd be posted on the website in terms of that.
Also, bring a pair of gloves.
Oh, you're a garden center. Have you lived through one of those before? This would be a first for me, and actually, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be out of town.
Yeah,
Bring,
I've
okay, so
been,
Jim says bring gloves.
Bring gloves.
gloves.
I would say bring gloves and wear
A
long
bottle
pants.
of water.
Okay, and a bottle of water. And comfortable shoes. Thank you.
And a hat. All good advice.
And sunscreen.
From your board directors in action here. Okay. And an umbrella. They keep adding what things you need to bring. Item 15, future agenda items. All matters listed under future agenda items are resolutions on 30-day public review or items for a future board meeting. No action will be taken by the board on these agenda items in this meeting. The board will take action on these items in a future board meeting, and we have under that, nothing, none. And so now where we are is 16, director comments, and I'm going to start with Director English.
No comments, thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you, everyone, for coming.
I'd like to report on Laguna Canyon Foundation information. learn about the flora, fauna, geology, and history of this 20,000 acre wilderness area with Laguna Canyon Foundation volunteer naturalist and Orange County Park staff. You need water, hat, sunscreen, and sturdy shoes are very essential, along with any medications you may need. Participants under the age of 18 must attend with an adult, and there's online reservations are necessary, which you will be able to do and find out more information at RSVP online at lagunacanyon.org/events. That's RSVP online at Laguna Canyon organization/events. I do have a phone number of 949-497-8324. That number, when you call it, they may direct you someplace else, but that is the only number I have at this time. There's a very interesting particular class that's going to be shown, going to be handling this next month. It has to do with learning about snakes. Now, you can laugh about it, but that's very important to our staff members, for one thing. If you remember, I've said in the past, I had a rattlesnake in my garage that was approximately 6 feet long. And when the Humane Society came out, they kind of, it's a little later in the season. The snakes usually start coming out now, and it's important that you contact our staff members, even if you don't know what a snake is. And the guy kind of looked at me kind of funny and says, I don't hear any rattle. You say it's a rattlesnake. And I said, well, that's because he ate a big rat or a mouse. And he looked at me kind of funny. And he says, what are you talking? I said, I'm from Louisiana. I know what snakes look like, and rattlesnakes are that way. So I pulled the box back, and he put his thing down in there, and his rattlesnake goes, brrr. He said, that's a rattlesnake. I said, yes. And now when I see him, he just laughs and says, Ray, do you have any more rattlesnakes? It's really important because our staff can be hurt. Let them know if you see, even if you don't know what it is. Thank you. And we've got these, by the way, we have these up at the front desk for your availability for everyone to get.
Thank you, Diane.
Another good meeting.
Thank you, Jim.
I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I really want to thank the fellow board members for all their hard work. This was a good meeting. Thank you.
We're going over to Don.
Yes, I'd like to welcome our new council to our GRF board. I've never worked with Kelly, but he was here on third for 3 years, and heard a lot of good things, and very talented, and he knows our community, which is very important.
Oh, I forgot to say Happy Mardi Gras Day. It's in New Orleans. Today's Mardi Gras.
Yes, Dick.
Nothing.
I echo Don's welcome, Kelly. It's nice to have you back. Good meeting, thank you.
Yes, welcome, Kelly. And board members, thank you so much for your participation and your hard work. And thank you to the folks out there in the audience and TV land that stayed with us, and the audience here that stayed with us. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned. No, this meeting is recessed.